Introduction.
Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, was born on August 6, 1881 in rural Lochfield, Scotland, and passed away on March 11, 1955 in London, England at the age of 73. He received the Nobel Prize in 1945.
Childhood and schooling.
His father was a Scottish hill farmer, and he was born from the farmer's second wife.
He lived a poor but happy childhood.
After the death of his father when he was 7, his mother Grace Morton ran the farm. In Scotland he attended
Loudon Moor School, Darvel School, Kilmarnock Academy. Moving to London. In 1895, at the age of 13, he moved to London where he lived with his elder half-brother Thomas Fleming, who was an oculist.
In London, Fleming attended the Regent Street Polytechnic, now the University of Westminster, since 1992 for 2 years.
Thereafter, he joined a shipping office for 4 years as a clerk to earn his livelihood. Inheritance from John Fleming.
The death of his uncle John Fleming brought him a share of his estate, £250 in inheritance, which enabled him to start his medical education. Fleming was 20 at the time. Thomas Fleming, his half-brother, who himself was a physician, encouraged Alexander Fleming that he should adopt the same profession.
Entry in the medical field.
In 1901, he entered the medical field by joining St. Mary's Hospital Medical School, which is now part of Imperial College London, in Paddington at the University of London. While at St. Mary's, he won the 1908 gold medal as the top medical student at the University of London. Following this, he became a lecturer at St. Mary's until 1914. Initially, he intended to become a surgeon, but then changed his mind. He joined the inoculation department of St. Mary's Hospital and entered into the new field of bacteriology.
There he worked under bacteriologist and immunologist Sir Almroth Edward Wright.
Period of World War I. During World War I, Fleming served as an army doctor in the Royal Medical Corps and worked as a bacteriologist. He studied the treatment of wound infections in a research lab that had been set up by Wright in a British military hospital in France. Fleming discovered that antiseptics normally used at the time to treat infected wounds were doing more harm than good and often worsened the injuries.
They were more harmful for the body's infection-fighting leukocytes than infection-causing bacteria.
Ironically, more soldiers died from the antiseptic treatment than from the infections those antiseptics were trying to treat. While studying wound infections, he arrived at the conclusion that there was a need for some substance that would only harm bacteria, not the human cells, during treatment.
Marriage. In 1915, he married Sarah Marion McElroy, who was an Irish-born nurse.
In 1924, a son was born to them. They named him Robert Fleming. End of World War I. After the end of World War I, Fleming returned to St. Mary's in 1918. His interest in bacteriology had deepened, and he started researching on antibacterial substances which would not be toxic to human or animal tissues. Discovery of lysozyme. In November 1921, Fleming discovered lysozyme enzyme, an antimicrobial substance. Fleming demonstrated that an enzymic substance was present in a large number of tissues and secretions of the body, such as saliva, tears and cartilage, and it was capable of rapidly lysing, that is,
dissolving different bacteria, particularly a yellow coccus that he studied.
In other words, it had a mild antiseptic effect. Lysozyme was discovered accidentally.
One day Fleming had a cold, and while working in his lab, a drop of his nasal mucus fell onto a bacterial culture.
Being experimental by nature, he mixed the mucus into the culture, and a few weeks later he found out the bacteria had been dissolved. This marked Fleming's first great discovery. Fleming's study of lysozyme was a great addition to the understanding of human immune system. Unfortunately, lysozyme didn't prove effective against most disease-causing bacteria. He reported his discovery before following
the Medical Research Club in December 1921, the Royal Society in May 1922.
But his report failed to generate any interest.
Discovery of penicillin.
It was in 1928 that Fleming made his splendid discovery, which marked the beginning of antibiotic revolution. It was the world's first widely effective antibiotic substance, which he named penicillin.
In 1928, Fleming started experimenting on the common Staphylococcus staph, bacteria that causes boils, and can also cause lethal infections in people with weakened immune systems.
One September morning, after enjoying a 2-week holiday with his family at Suffolk, Fleming returned to his lab. Before leaving for his holiday, he had inoculated staph on culture plates and left them on a bench rather than placing them in the incubator as intended. By some means, a Penicillium mold spore had been accidentally introduced into the culture plates, most likely floating up from the lab directly below Fleming's, where different molds had been cultured.
Had the incubator been used, only the bacteria would have grown? On his return, he noticed that an uncovered petri dish had been contaminated with a fungus.
Fleming noticed the bacteria immediately surrounding the fungus were dying, and a bacteria-free circle was created around it, whereas other bacteria farther away were normal. He correctly concluded that the mold was producing some substance which was toxic to the bacteria. Fleming thought that he had found an enzyme more potent than lysozyme.
In fact, it was not an enzyme but an antibiotic.
He was soon able to show that the same antibacterial substance inhibited growth of many other types of harmful bacteria. He isolated the mold and identified it as Penicillium notatum. Fleming found out that it was not the mold itself, but some juice it had produced that had killed the bacteria.
He gave the name penicillin to the mold juice.
This antibacterial substance, penicillin, was not toxic to either human beings or animals. Fleming published his discovery in 1929 in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology, but the article drew little attention by the scientific community.
Fleming faced two main problems:
unable to develop a technique for stabilizing and purifying penicillin, unable to produce penicillin in large amounts. Purification and mass production. For more than a decade there was neither realization nor support for his great discovery. Finally, in 1939, two medical researchers at the University of Oxford, Howard Walter Florey, a pathologist, and Ernst Boris Chain, a biochemist, came across Fleming's article. They worked on the project and succeeded in isolating and purifying penicillin. They tested the antibacterial substance on animals and humans, and demonstrated penicillin's ability to kill infectious bacteria. By 1941, it became clearly established that the new drug was immensely effective, and an injectable form of the drug was ready to be used. During that time, World War II was ongoing. With the encouragement of the British and American governments and participation of pharmaceutical companies, it became quickly possible to produce large quantities of penicillin.
Initially, penicillin was reserved only for war casualties.
By the time the war ended in 1945, the use of penicillin spread all over the world, resulting in saving millions of lives.
Award of Nobel Prize. For this great discovery, Fleming was awarded the 1945 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine, sharing it with Florey and Chain.
Apart from various other awards and honors, his name was included in the 1999 Time magazine's list of the 100 most important people of the 20th century.
Second marriage.
In 1953, Fleming married Amalia, a Greek physician and bacteriologist in London, as his first wife had died in 1949.
Fleming's death.
Fleming died of a cardiac arrest in 1955.
His ashes are buried in St. Paul's Cathedral, London. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, like, comment, and share.